Everyone, so I was at the IR. Thank you all for joining on such short notice. So I was at the IRS forum this week. I spoke in a couple of panels for the American Bar Association of all places, but thank you, Frank Agostino. So in the vendor room, I'm always still looking for a replacement to the tool who will go nameless that I used last year that I really didn't think was fully AI tax prep. So I met Tom Wahl and his wife Kate, and one of our running jokes has always been, oh, great, yet another non tax person here to save the industry for us. Well, Tom is a tax guy like the rest of us. He has a practice in New Jersey, and he's built out this tool. And I did it, I took up 20 minutes of his time, as I usually will, because I never shut up. And I like what the tool was doing. I like where it is today. And that's also been one of the fallacies when we look at other tools is they don't deliver what they've promised, right? You really need to test drive the stuff and on real data and see what it looks like. In Tom's case, it's a low cost to entry. It seems to work. He's going to give us a good demo now. So I'm going to ask you to let him run. I'm going to ask a couple of things. Let him run through the whole thing before we do the questions. The second thing is, let's not mention other tools, but you can say another tool I used did this or that. The third thing will be that we have a hard stop at 12:55 because I have to get into another coaching program. So Tom Wahl, it's all your show.
Yes, thank you so much, Sean. It's a pleasure to meet you the other day, and I appreciate you having me on. And I appreciate all of your time. I'd like this to be educational as well, so you guys at least take away something from this. If I could just make sure that somebody can see my screen, I'm just going to run through a brief introduction on who I am and why I'm here talking to you. And can everyone see my screen? Maybe someone give me a thumbs
I
up.
can see it.
Okay, great. And if you guys could, while you're watching this, if you don't mind, would you go into the chat and just mention which tax software you're currently using, if you don't mind. So to give a really quick introduction, my name is Tom Wahl. I'm a certified public accountant. I've been a CPA for a long time, maybe, 14 years or so. I've done pretty much everything in accounting, finance, and tax. I've worked for some of the largest and smallest companies in America. And, I've always wanted to own my own business, which in hindsight is a really crazy endeavor. But I imagine most people on the call here all run probably their own operations or they're very close to it. So when COVID happened, I took a stab at starting my own tax practice, and I've been doing that for several years, and it's been really great. So I basically live in your guys' shoes. I do your day to day. I understand what it's like, to John's point about not another tax professional. I happen to be lucky because I have a really good mind for technology. And for some reason I went into accounting, but I probably should have gone into software engineering. But I've always been like a tinkerer on the side. And as I was doing tax returns and as AI started to come around, I realized that it was going to change everything. And I was tired of kind of just putting stuff in, hand keying things in. And I'm just like, why are we still doing this by hand? So I started to build a solution for my practice. And next thing you know, I had something that I thought other people could use. And that's how Avalon Tax was started. So what we do is tax prep automation, and I'm going to show you exactly how that works. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think John mentioned that we'll do that at the very end. So I'll just kind of walk you through a brief demo of what this is. And then, I also wanted to talk about how I use AI outside of Avalon Tax to hopefully, leave you guys with something, a way to, you can sort of look at how you can use AI for your practice. And, we hear so much about it in all these meetings and things. And I feel like it's nice to actually see, okay, I hear AI all the time. How can I actually use it? So I'll talk about two different ways I use AI. One is through Avalon Tax, and the other is through either Codex or Claude, which is a little bit more advanced, but somebody in here might be interested in learning about that. So this here is Avalon Tax. It is a desktop application. So you go ahead and you download and install this onto your computer. Everybody always asks about security. It is super secure in that your documents stay on your computer. They're never stored to our database. We can't ever see them. So if our systems are ever compromised, nothing happens to yours. In terms of when AI is being used, you're probably wondering about 7216 consent and is my data being disclosed? It is not being trained on any models. It is not being stored whatsoever for any reason. It's like a secure telephone call that, secure line to the president, kind of a thing. And that's transient. So once the AI assists with the analysis, it's gone like it never happened. So, no one can see that data. Nobody can sell it, et cetera, et cetera. So in this example, we're going to prepare a Lacert tax return. We can go ahead and import our client list directly from Lacert if we want to. In this case, I'm just going to create one right in Avalon Tax. Today we do 1040s, and this is actually a demo environment, but we're working on partnership returns next. But basically, we will create a new 1040, and we'll call this Tom Wahl Demo 1. And then we're going to give it a client ID. So, some softwares need this, some don't. If you guys use Drake, it'll just pull out the social. So we will just make up a number here for the Lacert client ID and create that client. Now, in terms of getting documents into Avalon Tax, we're working on partnering with some of the, I guess you would call them client management solutions. Companies like TaxDome, Canopy, so we can have a direct integration. But for now, if you do use something like TaxDome, I use it for my practice personally. Not necessarily endorsing it, just saying it's what I use. And there's an app that throws a virtual drive onto your computer. So I navigate to my client documents. I go to the tax year. Let's say they've uploaded all these documents individually, and we just go ahead and select the ones that we want to import. So I'm selecting a W-2, a 1099 combined, a 1095A, a driver's license, an interest statement, maybe some property tax, profit and loss statement for a Schedule C. We can handle over 50 different types of documents. So I'm just basically dropping these in. And what happens immediately is the tool begins to read and detect the type and then extract the data. And all of that stays locally on your computer. So that's, half the battle is like, what do we need to pull out of these documents? And so you can see it's really fast. Some of it has already finished extracting. This is my driver's license from, I don't know if anyone is from Arizona on the call, but this doesn't expire until 2051. So this was a long time ago. But it pulls out all the information to, update, Drake, Lacert, ProConnect, CCH. You can see a bunch of forms are already done. It's super fast. One really cool one is a profit and loss for a Schedule C. So you can basically just drop in a P&L from QuickBooks, or you can do like, chicken scratch. Someone hands you a scribbled paper or an Excel file or whatever. And as long as we, make sure it's detected as a Schedule C type of document, what happens is it'll go ahead and extract all of the amounts over here. And then, the AI is going to basically read the description, and it's going to reason through based off of all of the available categories it could go into in your tax software. It's going to, reason through which one fits the best and mark that for you. And then you can override it if you need to. And then it's going to go ahead and load that into your tax software. So basically, and then, here's a couple that were not categorized. So we're going to click auto categorize. So, this is actually AI in action, and it just went through and, called, Stripe fees, bank charges, and other things. So we're going to go ahead and click on save. And now we've generated the import file for that Schedule C. But just to kind of show you some basic stuff, here's an interest form. And over here on the right is everything that's been extracted. It'll go through and tag documents as are they for the taxpayer or the spouse. So, AI is reasoning through and, based off of the prior 1040 you might have uploaded, it'll pull out who the taxpayer and the spouse is. So it'll go through and reason that information. We can do K1s, the federal page of the K1 and QBI. Before this call, we were working on building this out to do basically all of the footnotes in the K1s, plus the state stuff. So we're in the process of updating that. And then the really cool stuff is like a 1099 combined. So, here we've got, it pulls out dividends, the gains and losses by the summary category, and then also the transactions. So by default, it's going to enter the summary information. It's also going to do the transactions. People always ask, do you guys do the tax exempt adjustments? Yes, we do. There's a special button for that you can enable to basically pull those out. And then we're working on accrued interest adjustments as well. So yeah, basically we handle over 50 different types of documents. Here's a W-2. If it's multi-state, it handles that really well. And then, just to give you a feel for other things we handle, right? So the prior year 1040, you can drop that in. If it's a new client, it'll update the prior year comparison. If it's got a capital loss carry forward, it'll grab that. Every K1, every 1095, 1098, 1099, and then things like, bank statements to generate a Schedule C, charitable contributions, childcare expenses, driver's license, estimated tax payments. You can just throw in a bunch of, like, if somebody wrote a check and they're like, hey, I made this estimated tax payment, it'll read that. And as long as there's a note on there, which some people put that on, it'll reason through and fill that out. So it can handle a broad array of structured, like IRS forms, and unstructured data. And then to get it into the software, it's super easy. So we basically have our tax bots list over here. We have the demo we just did, Tom Wahl demo 1. We're going to give this a state ID. In some cases, it'll pull it out if it can find it. And then, here in Lacert, here's our client list. And, we don't have a client in there called TW9998. So we're going to go ahead and deploy this and push this into Lacert. So the first thing it does is it's going to go ahead and check the client list just to make sure there's no conflicts. We're going to say, yes, go ahead and do that. And so when it goes through to run this, what it's doing in real time is it's using AI now to basically intelligently match, what's currently in the return with what's coming in. Because a lot of you guys pro forma stuff, if you have existing clients, so you might have multiple W-2s or interest forms or stuff carrying over. And basically you're going to want to update that instead of just, blindly adding or blindly overriding stuff. So, there's AI involved in the extraction. There's AI involved with like 1098s and routing those to where they need to go. And then when it comes to inputting the data to make sure we're matching things up. So, in a couple of seconds, we basically, or I guess minutes, it took maybe a minute to extract those forms. It took less than a minute to now basically enter this into Lacert. This is our work paper that has, W-2s, interest, dividends, 95A. It shows us everything that was entered. If anything was skipped or, wasn't entered for whatever reason, or if things were matched up, it tells you what happened there, and you can export this CSV to have all this data. And then, here in Lacert, we'll just give the screen a refresh. And here is that client. Here is that client now entirely populated. Now entirely populated into Lacert. Wages. Here's W-2s. It does all the specials. It does all the adjustments. State adjustments. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's when I use this stuff, it's just when I use this stuff, it's just like crazy to me how this stuff is changing. This stuff is changing, and times are changing. So times are changing. So that was kind of that's the high level, quick and dirty of Avalon Tax. There's so much more to it. But I don't want to talk the whole time. I definitely want to answer your questions. Just want to show you a couple other things. Is once it's done, it puts everything into a nice like work paper list. So you can basically export this. You can come in here and you can make notes and check marks to verify the data. So typically I'll have Lacert on one screen and Avalon Tax on the other. And then you can export this as your work paper where everything's organized. And then we have a review feature that basically compares the prior year tax return to the current year data to basically see, hey, did we miss anything? And then we can ask it questions. What would the impact of a 50K donation to charity be for this client? What documents are missing? And what's great about this is when we chat with the AI here, it's got scoped into the context all of that data. So you're actually having a conversation with the client's data, not just with like a chat GPT. And all that stays with the zero data retention. So I'm going to pause here. I did want to talk about other ways to use AI outside of Avalon Tax, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of an education on a really cool example of something that I did. And I think a lot of people don't know about it, but maybe someone on the call, maybe you guys do. I don't know. I guess, these things are changing fast, but I'd like to get your feedback on that. So what questions do you guys have?
So let me do a couple. So sure. I can see some of the things they're asking. So first, someone asked about UltraTax, and I thought I typically know what software they're using. I forgot Portia is using UltraTax, and there's a couple of people with Pro Series. How close are you to UltraTax being or not yet? Not this year.
It's not this year, but we definitely get that a lot. So
right now,
year, I don't have a timeline.
Yeah, on Pro Series, Pro Series, Drake, CPA Access.
Yep.
And Lacert Desktop, those four.
Yep. ProConnect, Drake, Lacert, and CCH. That's correct.
Now, we already know if I'm using CCH, just like every other tool you use, you have to download the CCH file. He'll import the stuff into it, and then you upload CCH back into the data file back into the software. How does it work with Drake, ProConnect, Lacert? What's a high-level overview of how I'm getting your export file into my software?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So I have another example of Drake here, but basically, with Drake, you import your client list through the CSV file, and I can show this real quickly here. I just got to log in, but basically with Drake, there isn't a API or a mechanism to basically push the data directly into Lacert. I think what makes us different from other tools is that, from what I've heard from other tools, and not to call them out or anything, but basically when you go ahead and run this, I think there and some other tools have like a two-step process. So, and the feedback that I've heard is that it's slower. So I'll just run, or actually I'm logged into Lacert here. So let me just change to Drake. Just give me one sec here, and then we'll kick this off, and I'll explain it in 1 second. Let's see here. Just go down. All right. Do this one here. Okay. So just run a couple forms here. Click on deploy. Okay. So this is a Drake example. But basically, when you're running a Drake bot, so this is happening live in real time. My hands are off the keyboard. There's no like validation. There's no like pre-run and then validate and then run again. It does everything sort of in one shot, and you can batch them up. So you can do multiple clients, one by one by one. And so what's happening with this is it's actually reading what's in here in real time, and it's looking for a match to see if like, hey, we have to update this existing W-2, or do we add it? And same thing whenever it's doing an entry, and especially when it's like routing a 1098, it's going to read in real time and see, hey, I see you're adding the Schedule E. I see that what exists doesn't match exactly what's coming in terms of like the property description, but we're going to reason through and say, hey, we think this is the one because it's almost a perfect match. And then we're going to route the 1098 to the correct screen. So we're just going to enter the 1098 and then, enter the position of, whatever that 1098 is. So this is Drake. And then, CCH is a simple file import. And then ProConnect is similar to Drake, where it does the entries.
So what are folks doing then on these hard entries? We want to run a separate machine on our network that's going to run the deploy. What's the best practice?
Yep. Yeah, the best practice is to have a virtual machine. That's exactly what this is right here. So this is a computer within a computer. I'm going to minimize it, and it's going to keep going. So I'm back to my normal computer here. This is the Lacert demo. And if we flip back, Drake is still going. So there's different ways to do that. You can do this by setting up, if you have Windows Professional, they have a built-in VM sort of system. So you're going to need like probably about 32 gigs of RAM as a spec, not to get like technical, but you can basically run a machine within a machine there, and it costs you nothing except the Windows Pro license. The other way is you could use something like Azure, which is a little more technical. If you don't want to get technical, I can recommend some providers that there's one called InterPC, who's really good about, they're a hosting service specifically for accountants. We've tested there and it works really well. So any kind of virtual machine you can set up a computer in your home. Like I had in our home, office, we have several computers, and that's actually what this is. This is a different computer in the office that, it always does tax stuff and coding and whatever.
A lot of folks are familiar with Splashtop. So we could put another computer in the office, no keyboard, no monitor, plugged into the network, and use Splashtop or some other remote desktop protocol, RDP, to access this and run the stuff without interfering with your computer.
Yeah, and I don't know what Splashtop is exactly, but the service right here is it's built-in RDP. You just mentioned remote desktop protocol. It's built in and comes as part of the tool. So as part of Windows.
Splashtop makes it easier so multiple team members can access that one computer one at a time.
Gotcha. Okay.
By access through 100 hours a year through Splashtop. That's all.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good solution there.
Okay. So in other words, if you have a spare computer in the office, you can make this work. If you have a 32 gig computer on your desktop and you're a control freak, you can make this work.
That is correct. There's a number of different solutions out there, depending on how much of a control freak you are, how much you want to pay. how much you want to operate it versus give it to someone else. I mean, there's at least 3 or 4 different really good options out there.
It just sound, I'm trying to encourage them that this sounds more complex than it really is if you're using Drake or Wissert desktop. That's all.
And yeah, exactly. And it really, I mean, it really isn't complex. I mean, every accounting firm I've been to, everyone has some kind of way to remote into their office. And, don't you guys want to work remotely, right? Like this is what this would enable you to do. If you are on, you want to travel somewhere, but still remote into your machine so you can access your stuff. I mean, that's what I do. And I don't, some of the hosting services can be like really expensive. Um, so I just like to have the control and, but I understand if you're not technical, you're going to want to make sure everything's backed up. So you got to balance like, how much you want to be involved in the process. There's some questions in here. I'm wondering if let's see, should I tackle some of these questions, John?
Yeah,
Or this?
go. Yeah, yep.
Okay, what if a line on the P&L is a personal expense or the amount needs to be changed? So basically, we just pop this open and we simply come in here and we change it to whatever it needs to be. You can search for it or you can just mark it as unmapped. And if it's unmapped, it won't go into the software. Will the AI catch an incorrect year? Yes, the year is brought in with every single document and it's listed here. If there's no year, because sometimes a document comes through and there's no year, it's assumed to be for that tax year. And then, once you run the bot, it doesn't like sort of lock you out. You don't have like a certain number of credits. You can come into these returns and you can run stuff and add stuff later. If somebody forgets to give you stuff, you come in here and you just drag and drop. It'll show up as an additional document that it hasn't been ran yet, and you can just run it again.
Hey, one thing you mentioned, like with Drake, uploading my entire database into the software. When do I get charged for a token for a return?
And so yeah, good question. So you're not uploading your entire database. You're just uploading your client list to give you a starting point, so you don't have to like do it manually one by one. So it's just importing the client list, and it's like a standard file that Drake produces, a CSV file, and then you get charged as you add a client, basically. So we don't have any minimums, except you just have to purchase one. So for people who want to try it out, you have to just at least buy one. You buy it within the tool over here, and then you consume a credit when you add a client by tax year. No, all the documents do not have to be in PDF form. They can be in any form. The lovely pics, those are my favorite. I had one where, someone, they're like an actor in New York City, where I'm in New Jersey. So we get a lot of New Jersey, New York returns. And, she like took a picture of 20 different pages of W-2s because she had all these gigs and like her thumb was on it and whatever. So as long as a human can read it, the AI can read it, and it does an amazing job.
So you read a native HEIC document, right? The Apple pictures, the HEICs?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. That's important. All right.
Yep. Let's see. Drake tax, if I drag a 2024 return into Avalon, will it populate screen one? Yes, it will. That's exactly in the very beginning here. We click on add client. There's a screen here for a prior year 1040. And it's optional to do this. If you do this step, what it does is it does populate screen one. It populates the comparison. It populates any capital loss carry forwards and prior payments applied. And then it's going to populate the taxpayer and spouse information. So down here, if this is filled out, this is what tags each document. The AI reads this and it knows who the taxpayer or the spouse is. If you don't want to spend the time to do a prior year 1040, you can just put in like their name, like just Tom and Kate, and that'll be enough information for them to reason through to decide who is the taxpayer and the spouse. Let's see here. Let's see, I talked about the incorrect year, Drake tax. If Drake changes screens mid-year, does it break? If not, can you explain the how when there isn't an API? Yeah, that's a good question. So, we're basically running robots every day, constantly, to look for changes. So if the software does change, then we would have to update our bot. And we're on top of that, and, running tests all the time. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half. And in that time, really big changes happen in December and January. And then really nothing else happens throughout the year. So what we do is it's a desktop app. And if there's an update, some of it can be pushed over the web and it'll update without you knowing it. Some cases we have to do an update to the software, and we do those about once a week. So when you open the software, it auto updates and auto continues on. Should this work in RightWorks? So for RightWorks, we are trying to basically get on their platform. I know they've partnered with other people. I don't know if they have exclusive agreements, but at this time, we've been talking with some of their VP individuals, and it's a slow process. So we're trying to get on, and the workaround for that is, I have other really great services that are better security, better computers, and a better price. And we've had people switch. We had someone paying RightWorks $6,000 a month, and they're paying, probably 20% less on a different provider that provides a better service, and now they can use Avalon Tax.
Part of the problem, everybody, if you don't remember, is when you're using Drake on RightWorks, Drake extracts, I think it's $120 now per user directly to Drake for the privilege of using RightWorks. So if you start to build volume, there are better providers. So who are some of the providers, Tom, that are open and will let the bot run on it right now?
Yeah. So the options.
Verito, one of them?
Yeah, Verito is one of them. And I believe Ace Hosting is one. And then the other one, that's a really, really good one, they're called InterPC, based out of New York, New Jersey. And, happy to make an introduction to that one if you want. But yes,
can you give us that information? That would be great.
Yeah, John, what's the best way to do that? Do I just follow up after the call, or?
You can email that to me, and I'll email it out to this whole gang.
Okay.
If it's a document, we can just post it, because we're going to post this for replay on Big Marker, which is the webinar platform we use. And that way, everybody, I assume you don't care if 100 people watch this later.
Oh, no. I mean, that's,
right.
that's,
So that's
ideal for us. Yeah.
That's the goal here. Yeah. So if you give me a document, I'll email it out to everybody, and I'll post it as a handout for everybody else to watch. Yeah.
Yep. Do you set up a preparer in your firm for the VM to do the entry with? Do you set up a preparer in your firm?
I think she means in Drake, right? Drake has different preparers. So is there a preparer called bot?
I guess you could. You don't have to. We've always just you can log it in with any user, because the way that it works is, I guess it's up to what you want to do. The way that it works is like when it uses Drake, it just feels like a human's doing the work, but it's AI and a bot and a bot. So you could use your own. I have my AI assistant. His name is Alfred. So if you want to do an Alfred, you could do something like that. Sorry if that didn't answer your question.
Tom, how does this work for business returns?
Yeah, good question. So we're in the process of developing that. It hasn't been released yet, but that's a good question. I want to show you guys something else, because obviously obviously I'm heavily invested here in Avalon Tax, and we're trying to get people to use it. But I want to show you guys something else, just so you can at least learn something, and so this is a good use of your time. So business returns were in development, and I'm going to show you how I believe it's going to work through this other example. Pricing is on our webpage, so you can go to avalon.tax, and you can basically look at that, and there's volume discounts there. And again, we have no minimums. We don't have to make you pay $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 to get started. You can just do one tax return or whatever you want. So there's two different prices based off the tax return. Is Mac supported? Yes, Mac is supported for ProConnect only. And yes, we will share that information for InterPC. So I want to show you guys one other thing. Can anyone chime in the comments if you've used something like this in terms of AI? This would be like a Codex agent or a Claude agent that runs in the command line in your computer. I'm just curious how technical everyone is here.
Gwendolyn she's on here. Gwendolyn.
Okay, so there's at least one person. Okay.
Oh, I'm using Claude mostly stuff, but
do you use it like sort of like this through the CLI, or do you use it a different way?
Well, I mean, John, right now I'm just really refining the skills for work papers for entities and how anal retentive I am with bookkeeping. So that's what I've been focused on before I get to here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just really cool. And this is probably going to be, over some of your guys' heads, but it maybe not. I don't know. I just think that when you see a window like this, it looks a little bit scary, but it's really not. It's just like the original way computers were used, right? Through a command line interface. So,
Mhm.
what you do is you just type in Claude and you press enter. So you install something on your computer. And then what happens is, Claude is now running, and you can use Claude or Codex. And depending on which model you use and what month it is, one can be better than the other. I personally use Codex right now because it's better, but I was using Claude because at one point it was better. So
Interesting. I know it's a lot.
things are changing and switching. So just to show you an example I already did. So I have a real life tax return for a partnership that needed to be done. All right. And so these people, despite my best efforts, I cannot get them to get on QuickBooks, and I'm like about to fire them. Right. So so basically they wouldn't get on QuickBooks, but they sent me, all their stuff. Right. So for example, some documents they uploaded just to kind of show you is, here is like I had to screenshot their information from like Stripe, right? So like here's the balance as of the beginning of the year, and then here's every single bank statement from one of their banks, and then the fun one is their history. Let's see, this is like all their PayPal transactions. I think there's like 7,000 transactions in here. Right. So like, this is what I have to work with. Right. And it's like, nobody wants to do this. So this is where, like, to me, AI is crazy. And this is where we're trying to basically put something like this into Avalon Tax. So for the people who look at this and they go, I don't want to use this, like, this is too confusing. It's going to work in Avalon Tax this way. So basically what I did is I sent a prompt to this Codex session, and I said, regarding this client, I've given you their 2024 tax return. It's located here. I've given you their 2025 documents, and it's located here. Can you look at the way that I did stuff in the prior year and look at all the current year stuff, and then look at the prior year tax return? And based on all that information, can you reconstruct the books, basically? Can you give me what I need to basically be able to put this into the tax software? And in about 20 minutes, this is what it gave me. This is my reconciliation page. Everything tied out. I mean, I absolutely couldn't believe it. They put this README on here that basically, goes through and talks about basically anything that needed to be flagged, like what's kind of included in the system. It did a whole P&L that compared the current year to the prior year. It even created the categories, right, based off of what was in there. By month accounting, a balance sheet, a cash reconciliation. Like, I didn't necessarily ask for these things. It kind of just started spitting.
Right. It's built into Claude. It ties it out on its own. Like, it's
exactly. So and it went through all these steps, and it put in all the detail. It did a better job than I ever did as an accountant in 20 minutes. And to me, this is
You're fired, Tom.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So, for us, it's like, it's a crazy time because probably, I don't know, like, it's like, what does this mean for how accounting is going to work? But I mean, to me, I think if you're not using this, you really should start doing it. With the hard part to get it from here into your tax software, which I don't think the tax softwares are going to be going anywhere anytime soon, because we're all used to them, and it's part of our process, and it's just not going anywhere. I think the startups that are trying to replace tax software, I think that's a difficult challenge. That's why we're not writing our own tax software, because we'd rather just integrate. And then the hard part is actually getting it into the software. The AI is still really slow and not very good at that because it runs out of context and it doesn't know where to put stuff, and then it makes a mistake. So, our value add is, we've put our accounting brains into the software and told it things where to go, so it's super fast and accurate and does what we need to every time. But I just wanted to show you guys this as an example. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to, kind of give you more information on how to get started with something like this.
So real quick, $25 to get this thing started. And then the first 100, it keeps track. The first 100 are at $2,500. He's like a mutual fund. At 101, you start getting a price break.
Yeah, and the price is actually different based off the tax software. CCH and Lacert are 25 per return to start. ProConnect and Drake are 15. And then once you buy over 100, there's a volume discount.
15?
Yeah.
That's almost an incentive to switch to ProConnect. Oh.
Yeah. So Tom, actually,
don't you dare.
I've used another solution in the past, and I was really disappointed because it took a couple of hours, and I had to continuously provide prompts in between to get it work. Okay. I'm just curious, like, how quick is this on ProConnect, and we got the whole two-factor authentication because the
Yep.
cloud software. So do I need to like log in, set that up, first before I sort of deploy the data entry? I'm just curious, how does that
Yeah,
work?
no, it's super fast. So I'll just show you real quick. Let me just go back to, I got a ton of stuff open right now. Let me share this real quick. But we say on average, it's about 15 seconds to extract data from a form on average. So sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. It just depends on what you put in there. So 15 seconds. And then for Drake and ProConnect, it can be anywhere from like 3 to 15 minutes to import data. And it just depends on how much you have. So for ProConnect, we bundle Avalon Tax with a version of Chrome, and basically all you have to do is just make sure ProConnect's selected, go to our tax bot, and then we go ahead and click on deploy. I gotta find one that's ready to go here. 1 second. Let me just grab this guy, deploy, and then what happens is it pops open a browser, and then you just log into this browser, and it just stays logged in until you're done. But it's gonna go ahead and pop open its own separate browser.
Hey, Tom, what do you think of this suggestion? Anybody
Yeah.
who's concerned about speed should buy one return, take their most complex 2025 return, and rerun it through Avalon and see how long it takes your most complex return. That'll give you a gauge at what the worst end of it's going to be. The other neat thing is this runs on your PC, or a bunch of it runs on your PC. So hopefully you won't have the delays of 2,000 people are trying to process returns today.
And what is that comment? Sorry, about the 2,000 people?
Oh, yeah, because it's a bot running on your local machine.
Right.
You're not completely beholden to how many people are processing returns at the same time.
Exactly. That is exactly right. And yes, and so one way to sort of mitigate the speed issue that we've come up with here is we have a batch running process in this because I know how important speed is and accuracy, right? Because I know no one's going to use this if it's not saving them time. But basically, yeah, you just log in, and then we'll go here, and then I will just kick this off here. Okay, and we're going. So here
So
it is.
Tom, just to clarify, so do you have to navigate yourself to the client tax return within ProConnect? That
No,
do you
you
have
don't.
to create that first, or the software will create it?
You don't know. You don't have to. So here it is, running live, kind of showing you the speed. But you don't have to do that. You can go to clients over here, and you can download your client list, and it attaches the URL. And then basically over here, if you've configured it, in this example, these clients weren't ProConnect clients, so it's not configured, but you'll see like an auto deploy somewhere in here. And that if it has the URL, there's also this batch run feature where if you've got like multiple ready to go, you can just say select all and run them. And then, as long as you've imported the clients or given them a URL, which it does it automatically, if you just import it, it'll save that URL, it'll know where to go, and it'll just, run through those in the background. And Drake is the only one where you're going to need, I guess, Lacert maybe too, where Drake is the only one that actually sort of does some of the clicks on your screen. So, you're really going to need like a VM for that if you don't want to have your computer locked up. But like ProConnect will just run in the background on the web browser that opens up.
So let me ask one thing too. Having used some of these AI tools enough, let's say that I have 10 returns that came in today. They're all uploaded. I'm going home for the night. My computer is set so it doesn't power down or any of those things. I leave it to run overnight. It'll run the whole 10 return batch without prompting me that there's a problem or an error or it needs permission for anything. It'll just run.
That's correct. Yeah, as long as the computer stays awake and doesn't lock itself, which, you can set your VM to basically never go to sleep, but you can have your main computer lock itself, and that way it still runs in the background. If it locks for Drake, it won't run. But the other ones are Lacert and CCH are, those things write in, you saw it happen like under a minute. And then, Drake can take a little bit longer. We say anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes.
There's a couple of questions that popped up, mostly related to Drake. So if we go back to Bailey, am I correct to assume that if I were to add a new client in November and use DL and past return to populate Drake screen one, federal and state comp screens, dependents, DD payment, etc., we would be charged again when tax season starts? Oh, so she's asking if they can pre-populate some of this stuff.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's charged per client per tax year. We can figure anything out, right? So if you're trying to pre-populate stuff for 2026, we don't have it open for 2026 yet. It's just 2025, but we can work with you to get stuff, the way you need it.
Someone's saying down below, but when you talked about Chrome being in the app,
yeah,
but only in Chrome, not in Edge. We only use Business Edge for our firm.
Yeah. So what happens is it's a version of Chrome that comes bundled with Avalon Tax. If you guys want to look it up, it's called Chromium. And basically, it runs independent of everything else on your computer, and it's for security purposes. Mainly because Avalon Tax can't attach to your other browser, and I think it's safe that way, right? Avalon Tax is never going to attach to your browser, just the one that's bundled into it, and then it's really only going to have ProConnect access. So it has to be run that way.
So this is safer for those of you that know what Claude in Chrome is. Claude in Chrome is kind of dangerous right now. So this is both faster and less and not dangerous.
And yeah, and I also want to confirm about the danger thing. So when the ProConnect bot is running in Chrome, it's actually not like an AI that's doing it. It's really, a lot of it is code that we've pre-configured. And then AI jumps in to reason through when it sees something in ProConnect, it's like, hey, do I update this one or do I override it or what? If it's not sure, it'll make an AI call there and pause for a second and then continue on. So it's deterministic code, and it just cannot go rogue. It's not possible.
So Portia asked, why wouldn't I just subscribe each of my preparers and have them install Avalon on each computer? Can't we just see each we can't see each work paper?
Yes, great question.
Right.
You should do that, and there's no fee for different users. In the settings tab in Avalon Tax, I'm sharing my screen here. You have two settings here. One is for the application where the default storage drive is. If you have multiple team members and you all want to share stuff, you should change this to a network drive folder before you get started. Like the first setup step is this, and then invite your team members. So invite your team members, and every team member should install Avalon Tax and also change their storage directory to the same directory, and then everyone can share everything, including your credits and the documents that you have.
Okay, so this was already covered, but Laura asks if can I run this on my PC to try one and later put it in the software on the new host? I can't import Drake as that is hosted in WriteWorks, but I also privately said, I think you can upload a file into a directory on WriteWorks and import it into Drake from there. If someone forgets to upload a document and you get it later, can you re-import everything into Drake? And you said yes.
Yep, you can just, like, if they forgot to give you 1 or 2 or 3, you just go back to your tax bot, go back to that client, and you can just run just those 3.
Okay. Portia said, do you have any suggestions for how to update the WISP since it's that time of year? What would the template be? Do you have anything put together?
Yeah. So if you guys, whoever's interested, they can email me at the end, or, we can figure out a way to get in touch. But what I usually send people is a statement, signed by us on how your customer's data, your client's data is handled, as well as the zero data retention certificate from Anthropic. Anthropic is the AI company that we use to help process stuff. And their legal department says, hey, whoever uses Avalon Tax, zero data retention. So I share that stuff, and I share that, we don't train, we don't sell, we can't see your information. So, we should be all good in terms of WISP and, 7216 and all that, because we're just helping with tax prep. So
do you have a SOC audit? And if not, do you not need one?
We've started looking at vendors. it's just a tricky time with us, in our phase. We're in the process of evaluating a vendor, but we haven't, started the audit. We've built everything in mind to be able to be compliant with it,
Okay.
but haven't started the audit yet.
And you'd start with the SOC 2. What are you looking to do?
Yeah, I mean that the goal is SOC 2. It takes like 3 to 6 months or whatever they say. So
Cool. Ruben wants to know, what's customer support like? If
Yep.
we run into an issue, can we speak to someone relatively quickly?
Yep. And so basically, I've been the one handling customer support because, no one knows the tool or tax at Avalon Tax better than me. There's a couple different ways. You can go to our website and you can book a meeting and I'll be the one on the call. You can email support at Avalon Tax and get an answer right away. You can also email me, Tom at AvalonAITax.com. And, the most important thing to us is to make sure you guys are happy and it's working for you. So it's our number one priority. And that's how it goes.
Hey, take a look at the last question there from Alan.
Yeah.
It's a little
Yes.
technical, I think.
Yep. So basically, yes, you will be charged, if you need to import or add clients, right? So if you've only bought 10 and, you want to import 100, you can only import 10, and then, start working on those. But we got some feedback to change that to where it's like, look, just let us just import the list. And then as we go to do one, then, unlock it that way. So we're looking at changing that so you can at least get your client list in once.
That would be interesting with a saved credit card, right? Hi, you're out of tokens. I need another $25, $15. Quick yes.
Yeah. We don't save the credit card. It's all, run through Stripe. So you guys control totally when you're billed. We don't ask for anything. We don't automatically charge anything, like none of that shady stuff.
Can you answer his question about Citrix Cloud Server on the bottom?
Yeah, Citrix Cloud Server would be on the admin desktop and then access would be available to all users. Do they each need a separate login to Avalon? I am not sure how to answer that one, but basically, yeah, ideally every user has their own login and then everyone has their own install of Avalon Tax, and then you link it together through those two settings that I showed you. So as long as Citrix Cloud Server allows you to install Avalon Tax, you should be good to go. And this thing works on Windows 10, Windows 11. I've been testing on older machines. It's kind of cool. So
you better not run on Windows 10. Windows 10 sunset last October 25.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
If you're using a Windows 10 computer, stop.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything else? I think I see all positive comments. You're open to emails from these characters, Tom, if they have any.
Absolutely. Yep. You can book a time with us for more, a longer demo if you'd like, or more questions, or if you go and try and use it and, you have any questions or need help getting set up, any one of those mechanisms, you can reach out to us and we'll respond right away.
So I just put Tom's email address for you at the bottom, Tom at AvalonAITax.com. And I'm going to put a copy of that information with the replay file. You all get an email for the replay. See, I have his business card. It was very nice. So I'll put that up there for you too. And then I hope everybody, I know this was short notice. I thought it was important. I'm afraid he's going to be inundated. I went back the last day that the vendor room was open and I said, can I get you for Friday? And he said, sure. So I think
thank you so much.
Yeah. So I know a lot of it seems to be switch season, right? Everybody is talking to vendors and looking at products. I thought this was important. I like it. I'm going to start trying it out. So if that matters to anybody, and everyone, thank you. Yep.
I'm sorry, one last question. What was your timeline about getting the entity returns or the K1 notes and states? Do you have a timeline on that?
Yeah, I mean,
did I miss that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't give a time on that specifically, but I would say, like, usually how it goes is we'll probably release something in a couple of weeks. There's likely to be a couple bugs with that just because it is so complicated. Yeah. But like, I just think all in all, we'll have it like really solid by November. But we're going to hopefully release like the first version of it in a couple weeks.
Gwendolyn's big concern is that many of these states have the pass-through entity tax, the PT,
the hell
buried in the footnotes. And that's what that's what she's asking about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So today it does, QBI, it'll go through in there and read that. It's just, it's tedious for us to go through and program all the different things. And that's what we're working on right now. So,
SSTB, the 199A, is it good at recognizing the industry, you think? How's it
yeah,
doing on that?
yeah, it should. I mean, it should be really good.
Great.
It should be really solid. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time, everyone.
Time on a Friday, Tom. After being away, the first thing I said is, "You're going away for the weekend, right?" After being at the forum all week, and he said no. So he's just like us. So
Yeah, I know. All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Tom, and everybody have a fabulous weekend. All right.